This episode of Death Battle Cast is sponsored by Mack Weldon and Quip. Stay tuned for some great deals you can get with them later on in the show. Hello, and welcome to the Death Battle Cast. We are the cast and crew of Death Battle and beyond, I suppose.
Beyond.
Yes.
Not really beyond. I work just two computers down from everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on your definition.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm Ben. I am the voice of Wiz.
I'm Sam. That's all.
He's here too.
I'm Josh. I edit the show sometimes.
I'm Kyle. I'm filling in for Chad while he plays World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
Chad is
Jumping right into that.
sick,
Yeah, he's sick.
which is we don't know about that.
I mean, he is officially sick. Apparently, there's a bug going around. His family's kind of caught it. So, unfortunately, Chad will not be joining us today.
It's called the
but we
WoW
got
Classic
Kyle.
bug.
yeah.
I mean, you decide. Is he sick or is he really just playing WoW Classic? Who
I mean,
knows?
He's certainly playing WoW Classic. There's no way he's at home sick,
Not playing.
just
That's fair.
Right.
watching TV. There's no way around it. He is logged in leveling right now.
He's not in bed just
Yeah.
oh, I can't get to my computer. Woe is
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
he's over
There's
there.
no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's still great to have you on, Kyle.
Thank you.
And Josh is joining us, editor of the Mechagodzilla fight, the Dragonzord fight, whichever one you were rooting for, which we will be talking about today. So if you have not seen the latest Death Battle, Dragonzord versus Mechagodzilla, you should go do that because we're going to spoil the shit out of it. Basically, there are a bunch of questions and comments that we saw attributed to the fight from you guys that I'd like to talk about, address, and just, answer the questions. Make sure everybody understands what we were doing with the episode.
So wait, you're going to spoil the episode if
am
people
gonna
haven't
spoil
seen
the
it?
episode.
Okay, I get it.
You haven't seen it? What
No, I've seen it. Yeah. I know who wins. Yeah.
God damn it, Kyle.
There was actually a big spoiler on, I think it was the RT subreddit. Somebody talked about it. I'm going to spoil something here, but they cut out a scene and the winner's head and put it on Thanos' head, and it was the caption, "You should have gone for the head." Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I saw there were a
That
bunch
makes
of really fun quotes in the comments about the killing blow and stuff like that
Yeah.
in this episode. Which, man, huge props to Christina, the animation director for this, as well as Tony, writer and help direct, and the rest of the animation team and writers and researchers. Holy shit, I love how this episode came about. I love how it looks. And of course, to Josh for the amazing edit. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
I've talked about it before, but this is an episode that I've been wanting to do for a long time, ever since Torian years ago turned in his Godzilla versus Gamera fight. And I was like, all right, it's time to start thinking about that matchup that I really want to do, Mechagodzilla and Dragonzord. Then 10 years later. It took a little while, but we finally got to it.
It's been 3 or 4 years, yeah?
Yeah, probably more like 5 years, but it's been a little while.
Yeah.
Now I remember there was some talk in the concepting or before the episode got started that they were gonna have the Green Ranger do some little jazz flute with his dagger, from Anchorman. Yeah, I'm disappointed that didn't make it in, but yeah.
Oh, we had some
We all
fun with
are.
the animations, and a little bit of that
Yeah.
made it into the little announcement teaser that we showed
Oh,
at
okay.
RTX.
Okay.
Which
was great.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Andrea was animating Tommy, the
Gotcha,
Green Ranger,
yeah.
and she's just having a blast, having him doing all these crazy things with the dagger and hip thrusting and whatever she wanted to do.
Now I'm disappointed I didn't see that video. Okay. Yeah.
It's on my Twitter. I posted it.
Okay,
at a certain
I'll have to
point.
check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Sean really wanted the announcement to be this dramatic kind of reveal, and then it turns into a Happy Days sort of intro halfway through. It's great. But anyway, let me get to the questions and comments from you guys. And I also have the chat open if you are watching live as a first member. Thank you for supporting us, and feel free to leave a question or comment in the chat. I might be able to address that, although we do have a lot to talk about for this episode. So I'm going to try to get through it, because some of this can get very detailed and intense. So you guys ready to jump into that?
Yeah, let's get in there, and then we can get to memeing later.
Okay.
That's my favorite part is memeing.
Let's do it. Okay.
Sit back now.
First thing I want to address is last Death Battle cast we had Tony on, and he was one of the writers for this episode. And I saw a surprising number of people kind of take issue with that. Essentially, the reason why we brought Tony on was because he's a big kaiju fanboy. While all the rest of us were growing up watching, the popular cartoons, he was watching crazy Japanese monster shows. Like that was what he grew up on, and he's the prime example of a person who is part of the Godzilla and the kaiju fan base. And so a lot of people thought, well, if you have him as the writer, aren't you just bringing on bias? That's the reason why Mechagodzilla, spoilers, won. And I really wanted to address that because that couldn't be further from the truth. Tony came on board.
I mean, just as a sheer fact, like, he didn't decide the winner.
Well, right. That's one of the factors, is that Tony was not the only person writing. It was Tony and Tack were the writers. We had, of course, the entire research team on board. So the way we generally do these episodes is we assign 2 lead researchers. Each researcher takes a character, and they become, their mission is basically to become experts in their character, their assigned character. But of course, we have a full research team of 9 people, 9 amazing people who, even though only 2 of them are assigned as the leads, everybody jumps on board to help out, which is awesome. And of course, we have a writer on each episode, sometimes 2 writers, and then myself acting as a director and sort of a script editor when need be. So ultimately, what ends up happening is there are a bunch of people coming together to write and research and figure out who wins. And when all is said and done, all of this comes together in a big meeting between myself, the writers, the researchers. Sometimes Sam will join, Sean will join, other people will join, depending on how many people can get in. And all of us have to come to a unanimous decision on who would win and why. So it's not just one person deciding it. So the reason why Tony was brought on for this is because he has that knowledge of not only the Godzilla series, but also the fan base. Because one of the things that we don't really talk about a lot is that we don't just research the characters, we also look into the fan base, because it's important to us.
Oh, I mean, a big example of that was like Kenshiro Jojo, because like getting a fight like that to like, we worked really hard, even though we knew who was going to win for quite a while. We had a lot of revisions just trying to make that like something that both fan bases will enjoy thoroughly, with like having, and especially with that one, with JoJo being like so stylized, and Kenshiro being like so legendarily, I don't know, like it's so
over the top.
old school anime, and like just like trying to fit that bill was it was a challenge and a lot of fun.
Yeah, because the death battle is not just about figuring out who would win. Like, obviously that's the main point of the show, but it's also about celebrating the characters and kind of feeding to the nostalgia that people have for these characters, and reminding them of why they enjoy them, and maybe helping everybody maybe remember or learn something new that they didn't think about before. So it is very important to me, very important to us, to know what the fans want, know what people want to see, and what they think of these characters. And so having somebody like Tony come on board not only gives us a really good knowledge base starting without having to start from scratch, but also lets us know like what he wants to see. If he wants to see it, there's a really good chance that other Godzilla fans want to see it.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to start from scratch on that end either. And of course, a lot of us grew up with Power Rangers, so we already know I was a huge Power Rangers fan growing up. I've already talked about this. Green Ranger was like top tier character for me back in the day.
As soon as he came along, it was just like, Jason who? Like, come on.
Exactly.
It's all about Tom. Yeah.
So like, I already knew what Power Ranger fans wanted to see, right? Like, I already had that in mind, and I didn't grow up with the Godzilla series like Tony did. So bringing him on board was a huge help, and he did such an awesome job really bringing everything together to make this fantastic script, and help make the fight like the phenomenal thing it was. Like, and that's why he was there. And frankly, we do this all the time. Every single episode, I try to never assign any research or writing project to a writer or researcher who doesn't want to do that project, right? So whenever we start a season, essentially what I do is I list out the episodes that we have planned, and I'm like, hey, who wants to research what? Who wants to write what? And I try to assign things based on what people are familiar with, because we're just going to get a better end result overall if people are invested and interested in it. So that's why he was there. I think he brought a lot to the table, and it's really important for me to make sure that people understand that. Like, we're not trying, we take the ideas of whether or not bias is involved very seriously, and we do our best to make sure that that is not a factor regardless. So anyway, that kind of covers that. That was a little long, sorry, but moving on.
Well, doesn't it just come down to like, just simple calculus at the end anyway, where it's just like, clearly this character can like toss a character that's like, 4 times the weight, of someone else. It like demonstrates that strength. Because you break it down in the episode of like, was it Mechagodzilla toss someone that
tossed a heavier Godzilla than
than what the Megazord like punched kaiju like 40 meters in the air or something. Right. Basically, you broke it down to where it's like it required this amount of force to do this versus this.
Sure.
Therefore, Mechagodzilla stronger.
I do think there's. Well, I don't like relying on numbers purely.
Okay.
I think you need to take into account the logic of different powers versus each other, like
an experience of the fighter,
just counter
something.
each other.
Yeah.
In this matchup in particular, there's not a whole lot of this would counter this sort of thing.
Right,
but there are other fights where like somebody might have this amazing, powerful technique, but the other character just so happens to have the ability to just nullify it.
Yeah.
So then that number, whatever that number was for that amazing, powerful technique, doesn't matter anymore.
Gotcha.
So there are a lot of different factors that can go into play here. I think more so what people are concerned with the idea of bias being involved is us leaving stuff out. Because, and it's all, you're always going to find something that it feels like we did leave out, because we have to scrunch everything into a 20-minute video or less, essentially. So what we end up doing is picking out the things that really, truly matter. And then if there are certain feats or whatever that maybe should be mentioned but really don't matter to the argument or whatnot, it'll either be a tab in the video or we will address it here, as we will get to in just a little bit. So the second question, if Tommy could summon other Zords, why didn't you also include the Megazord and Ultrazord? Which is a really good question. I think there's 2 reasons, really. One, actually, I guess there's 3 reasons. The first is you're starting to get away from the whole idea of Dragonzord if you start bringing the Megazord and the Ultrazord.
Sure.
And I wanted to make sure that this was Dragonzord versus Mechagodzilla, not all the Power Rangers.
So the giant robots, not their pilots. Although their pilots play a big point in it, it's more so about those specific giant robots.
Right. Well, yeah. Essentially, to a certain extent, it is literally titled Dragonzord versus Mechagodzilla. So bringing in Megazord, bringing in Ultrazord, you start to get away from the idea that it's Dragonzord. I mean, that alone is not necessarily good enough reason to say that he shouldn't be able to, but then you can kind of factor in the other 2 reasons, which is 2, the idea of the Rangers bringing other Zords is not very clear cut. We do it mainly because it has been shown that Rangers can summon a few other Zords and make one transformation. There's not really a whole lot of evidence that they can make multiple transformations of Zords, especially because it's very clear that the Megazord and especially the Ultrazord do require
like a
lot of Rangers.
Yeah, you need like more than one person. Yeah.
The Dragonzord battle mode, we've seen it piloted by 3 people. So presumably Tommy by himself could probably work it.
He's just running around the whole thing.
Out here with legs.
Yeah.
We're good.
Well, and he can
My
also,
macro's not running shit.
Saba, take that side.
And he also might be able to control it with the Dragon Dagger. It's a little up in the air for that.
He's just trying to like flip dagger, like trying to do this, and like
Once you bring the Megazord into play and then the Ultrazord, like the Ultrazord clearly requires a large team, like all of them to make happen, and to bring Titanus in and whatnot. So I feel like if we brought those further transformations in and that ended up winning the day, I don't know if it would per se, but if that ended up winning the day, I feel like a lot of people would have issue with that.
For sure.
It would feel like Dragonzord cheated, basically.
Well, yeah, and it's like, and this might be besides the point, but didn't like the Ultrazord lose like one fight at the very end before they like switched powers or whatever? Maybe I'm wrong.
I believe they didn't even bother to bring in the Ultra Zord.
yeah.
Like Ultra Zord was weird, mainly because they had to use the toys to do it, I believe.
We got this.
One of the Ultra Zords, they had to use the toys.
We got this
They didn't have
fuck
the right
off
footage.
Brontosaurus over here that we don't know what to do with. So
Yeah.
Dragonzord now.
yeah.
So, question number 3: Why didn't you use a composite Mechagodzilla like you did for Godzilla back in episode 35? That'd be Godzilla vs. Gamera. And if you don't use composites, why did you include the comics and video games in your analysis for both Dragonzord and Kiryu? Real simple. We talked about this a little bit last Death Metal Cast episode, as well as why we went with Kiryu. So if you're curious about that, you can go check out the last episode. But basically, we don't do pure composites anymore. We used to. In seasons 1 and 2, we would just composite everything. Comics, video games, cartoons, TV shows, whatever. Everything together to get the broadest. The thought was we're going to get the broadest idea of the characters so that everything is there. The problem was that there were a bunch of broad ideas of the characters that just didn't mesh up with the people, what people thought the character was. Superman is a really good example. There's so many different kinds of Superman out there.
It's like towing planets and stuff, like the old
like
1950s.
the golden Superman Prime, all that stuff. So when we did Godzilla, we did a complete composite, which we may still do if we ever bring Godzilla back again, because Godzilla's a little weird, although we probably wouldn't. Essentially what we do right now is we pick a timeline, if we can, a main timeline, and then anything else acts as supporting evidence. So for Godzilla himself nowadays, we probably would use most Godzillas because they all can be supporting of each other.
Except for the 2000, because that is
a couple of them
different
not
Godzilla.
very
There are a
different.
few Godzillas that now have been like, those
Shin
are
Godzilla,
different Godzillas.
Godzilla
yeah,
Earth,
yeah.
yeah. But a lot of the Godzillas are pretty similar, so you could probably make a composite out of that. That's a little complicated, and obviously we would have to look into that more. But for Mechagodzilla in particular, there are 3 different Mechagodzillas, or there's a bunch, but there are 3 main Mechagodzillas, and all of them are very different. So we weren't going to splice them together to create some kind of weird chimera Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, this is the only one that's piloted too, right?
It's the only one that's piloted by one person. Mechagodzilla 2 is piloted by essentially a Megazord style crew. But this one is piloted by a single person. And why did we use comics and stuff as well if we aren't compositing? Again, going back to the supporting evidence thing. Essentially, we looked at the comics, and if there was anything in the comics that we could make an argument for that the movie version would be able to do, we could use the comics. It is especially useful for Mechagodzilla because he only has 2 movies.
Yeah.
So bringing in some other things that realistically that Kiryu could do still applies. Same thing for Dragonzord.
Like a good example, and this isn't exactly from the fight or anything, but what we mean by that kind of supporting evidence is like if in a comic book it says the say for example Mechagodzilla's height, but the movies never exactly say its height, and then that height we can measure up to a building and seems accurate and supportive, we're like, okay, that is good data that we can use alongside this.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I'm skipping a question a little bit, but there is a question of how did you determine Dragonzord's height as 95 meters when its toy box says it's 38 meters? If you look up Dragonzord on the Power Rangers wiki, you will find that its height is 38 meters. And that comes from a toy box that came out way back in the 90s. Here's the thing. Dragonzord's height seems to be, it could be anything. There are other toy boxes that say that it's over 100 meters. It's all over the place. So what we've done with Power Rangers in the past, and what we did here, is we literally took an image of Dragonzord next to a building and measured it. Average height of a city floor is about 10 feet. Measure that up. Okay, that's how tall Dragonzord is. He's standing next to a building.
Right.
We can figure it
Makes
out.
sense.
Yeah. So we came out to 95 meters. And then the comics actually support that, which helps support the idea that the comics might fit in with the same sort of power levels.
Because 38 meters is pretty silly. That's just a little higher than the peak of a 3-story house kind of stuff.
But, I mean, it's a little more
meters,
than that.
meters. Yeah, okay. Still, nonetheless, if you think about 38 meters and then you look at him in the show against buildings, you're just
way taller,
that's not 38
they're a lot
meters,
bigger.
he doesn't really match up to that size.
And honestly, a toy manufacturer in the 90s, they're not going to really pay attention to it. It's how
Language
tall is this thing?
barriers,
Put
they're
something on a
playing
box. It's
loosey-goosey as they
They
can.
can't just
Or it's
email. They'd have to call. That's long distance. That used to cost a lot of money back in the day.
I also have to wonder, these are American toy companies, so some of them might be like, what's a meter? It's 5 feet or something.
Who are we selling this to, kids? kids, they don't know. Fuck it.
Yeah. In the 90s, none of us knew the metric system in America.
Before we get to that next question, I know the Q&A is going a little long. We got a commercial break from our sponsor, Mack Weldon. Yes, we've been sponsored by them before. They are fantastic. If you have not tried Mack Weldon, you really should. Mack Weldon is better than whatever you're wearing right now. That's legit. It is a premium men's essentials brand that believes in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. Mack Weldon will be the most comfortable underwear, socks, shirts, undershirts, hoodies, sweatpants, and more that you will ever wear. Several of us own Mack Weldon apparel, and we agree. Like, this is not really hyperbole. There is a very good chance that it is a lot more comfortable and just better than whatever you're wearing right now. I mean, I'm wearing some right now. I don't think I can show you. YouTube might get mad, but it's really nice feeling. And they also have a line of silver underwear and shirts that are naturally antimicrobial, which means they eliminate odor by themselves, which is really nice. So again, they just genuinely want you to feel comfortable in your own clothes. So if you don't like the first pair that you get, you can keep it and they will still refund you, which is an awesome deal and no questions asked. Super nice. All right, so if you want to try it out for yourself, and I legitimately think you should, it's definitely worth at least trying. For 20% off your first order, you can visit MackWeldon.com and enter promo code CAST at checkout. That's MackWeldon.com and enter promo code CAST. MackWeldon.com, promo code CAST at checkout. Thank you, Mack Weldon. All right, back to some of that crazy Dragonzord versus Mechagodzilla questions. Let's do it. Next question. Why even bother with this episode if it means yet another loss for Power Rangers? You must hate Power Rangers.
Oh my God.
I mean,
We
it's
hate
true,
Power
right?
Rangers.
It's
We've
true,
killed
right?
them off
Right?
3 times.
Yeah.
They've-
Okay.
They're 0-3.
They're the worst.
So yes, we
You killed Tommy twice. How dare you?
It's that strong of a feeling that we have to bring them in
I
just to
honestly
watch them
thought,
die.
honestly, going into this, I thought the Dragonzord was gonna win. Like we always have. Obviously, we always like have our opinion going into it. Like, probably this character is gonna
Yeah,
win, and then we do all the research and
Not
really figure
even
it out.
opinion. We just have like really preliminary research where you're like, yeah, it adds up that character will win, and then like this is one where we were like, ooh, we were wrong on that one. It happens.
Yeah, once we dig into it, we're like, that absolute zero cannon is a lot more powerful than I thought it was. So, I honestly, I was kind of rooting for Dragonzord. Even though Kiru is like my favorite kaiju ever, I was like, Dragonzord's pretty fucking dope too. Like, I don't want him to win.
It's awesome.
So yeah, another loss for Power Rangers. Spoilers. By the way, I don't remember if we actually said that Mechagodzilla wins. But it's tricky, right? We've had 3 Zords or 3 Zord figure, or a bunch of Zord figurations, I guess, in Death Battle now, and all of them keep losing. I'm like, this is not intentional. I swear, I promise you guys, we do not set up episodes based on winners because we don't actually know who's going to win each episode as we're setting up episodes for each season. Like, there was a DC winning streak against Marvel for the longest time up until a recent episode. And that was not planned.
No.
Like, we did not plan that.
That's kind of the point too. If we picked matches that we knew, like the answer was clear cut, like why would we do that? The point of the show is to figure out like a tough. It's like if we were like, Dragonzord versus like, Hugh Jackman from Real Steel. I'm like, okay, yeah, really fucking cool fight, bud. Like, we already know what's happening. Like, we're just gonna step on you.
Yeah.
But of course, we're gonna pick fights and we're gonna make fights that we don't initially know the answer to because that's the ones that are interesting to do.
I mean, there are 2 ways that we could go about it. We could, try to structure our seasons based on winners. But I feel like if we did that to try to make sure that there's like an even split of winners and we're still maintaining, the sincerity and the bias-free elements of Death Battle, like we would have to essentially cut out a bunch of episodes every year because we would have to do all of our research and then greenlight the animation, then greenlight the script writing. Which would just extend all of our production time. Whereas right now, we can be doing research while we are working on other things. So there's no way, essentially, like, animation takes a long time. So while we are doing research, we are also building the models. We are starting the scripts. We are building the textures, building the environments. There's so much that goes into that. If we were to separate everything out, yeah, you would probably get maybe like 6 episodes a year, which I mean, that's just a number off the top of my head, but like it would definitely be like half what we normally do. So in order for us to hit, and that's another thing, like there are so many requests. You guys have so many awesome requests that we want to hit. There are so many awesome matchups that we want to do. Like I would generally prefer to do more matchups at a high quality than try to balance things out so everybody feels like there's an even split between win-loss ratios for every character. Like ultimately, I don't think that really matters. And I think the questionability of whether or not your character will win is kind of part of the fun of Death Battle. Like whenever the Power Rangers do finally get their victory, it's gonna feel so good. Yeah, it's gonna feel so good. Anyway, we gotta move on. The next question would be. I kind of skipped this one. Why didn't Tommy teleport into Mechagodzilla and take out Akane directly? One, Akane is not actually in Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, she's in the plane, jet, right?
Yeah. Why doesn't he just teleport to that? Two, Tommy doesn't really teleport into other machines. He did get into the Megazord that one time. He didn't teleport into it. He broke into it because he's got a power coin. That's why he got into it. We've never seen him do that ever since. I know it's a move in Legacy Wars, like it's a super move. He breaks into whatever the enemy is. Cool. It's a cool little nod to it, but it's not a thing that he relies on, especially since like there are other times when he has fought Zords like Serpentera, and he didn't try to break into it then.
Sorry, I'm just imagining like the Green Ranger just like teleports into your car and he's like, "Surprise, motherfucker!" And then he like jacks your ride, steals your girl too.
Where's that flute sound coming from?
And even if he did, Godzilla Ghost would take over, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, yeah.
Surprise!
Oh yeah, that's
bitch.
something like that's the only like cyborg-esque Mechagodzilla, right? Are the other ones like pure robots and Kiryu's it's I don't know if I pronounced that right, but yeah.
No, you got it.
It's built on the bones of Godzilla,
Yeah, it's technically a cyborg. It's using Godzilla's DNA and
Godzilla
bones
1,
yeah.
Grandpa Godzilla.
Old school Godzilla. No man, now I'm lost in my question.
Oh no,
because I skipped around. So obviously because we hate Power Rangers, we released this on Jason David Frank's birthday. Why did we release this episode on Jason David Frank's birthday only to have his most significant character killed? You must really hate Power Rangers.
Was everyone tweeting at him or something?
No, there were a couple of people who tweeted at him. So I know people are gonna say that I'm lying here because it's such a crazy coincidence.
Crazy.
I legitimately did not know. I promise you, I did not realize that.
We don't have his birthday on our fucking calendar.
We don't.
Like,
You don't?
It would take so much planning to make sure that that
God,
happens.
it's such a crazy coincidence.
We've been releasing on Wednesdays for fucking
Forever,
years now. Like we couldn't have planned. Like in 4 years, Jason David Frank's birthday lands
Plan
on
it
a
all
Wednesday, and we're gonna kill him. Like,
Oh man, I know people aren't gonna believe me when I say that because it just seems so perfect and so weird how that all landed. But you know, if you look into the Death Battle curse, we have had weirder things happen. So I'm sorry, JDF. I did not realize that would happen.
Here's what you do: you just have an episode where he just
Also-
fights all versions of himself. Like every Jason David Frank Power
are we
Ranger.
gonna go out of our way to piss off Jason David Frank? He could beat the shit out of any of us. Like clearly,
And we'd let him.
we're not in the probably.
Just film it. It makes good content. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone shouting "World Star" in the background.
No,
like,
that would be like I would turn the camera on fast, like 'cause that's a free death battle. Like just Jason David Frank versus Chad James, like great death battle.
That's a great death battle. Another live action death
Chad would be
battle.
like, "Yeah, beat me up. I get to stay home, play World of Warcraft. It'll be great." Yeah.
just another reason to stay home.
There you go.
All right. Well, speaking of Tommy, did Dragonzord eject Tommy before it was destroyed? Because generally in Power Rangers, when a Zord is getting blown up or whatever, it ejects the Power Ranger, and they're safe. Also, did Akane die in that plane wreck? So in the script, technically both of them survived. There was originally planned to be kind of an epilogue shot where Akane gets out of the plane wreck, and then there would be like a sort of vague shot where Tommy picks up the dragon dagger that's like busted and whatnot. But those ended up getting cut because it would have basically we would have had to rig a lot of extra stuff for Akane, and then build a whole new version of the dragon dagger. And we thought, okay, we've mentioned this before. We've got to surprising budget for Death Battle, given what the show is, but it's not a whole lot. So
also, I think people don't realize that this shit's expensive.
yeah,
it really
it's expensive
Animation
And there's
consuming.
time constraints, so
So I would rather focus on making sure like the killing blow or this awesome jumping shot of Mechagodzilla is becomes beautiful and really epic, rather than have this one shot of a broken dragon dagger, just because we would have to spend a week modeling this new dragon dagger or whatever it would take. So it ended up getting cut for time, but the intention was that both of them do survive. Okay, so now let's get into some of the really nerdy questions, the geeky questions, the hardcore versus community questions. Why did you say you can't scale Tommy and thus the Dragonzord to newer Rangers? So I saw a couple people mention this, and I'm not really sure why they did, because we never said that you couldn't scale Tommy to newer Rangers. In fact, back in Tigerzord versus Gundam Epion, we said the opposite. We figured out a general idea of how strong the White Ranger is by comparing him to, I believe it was the Green Ranger in SPD, because the idea is that they both draw from the Morphin Grid, and they all have the same powers, and they've all battled before in the Legendary Battle and whatnot. Like, all the Rangers are kind of in a similar league with each other. It's not necessarily the case for the Dragonzord, though. All the Zords are very clearly of different powers. Like, it's made explicitly clear in the original Power Rangers that the original Zords cannot compete with what Zed is doing, so they upgrade them to the Thunder Zords, and then they go to Turbo, and they go to space and whatnot.
Yeah,
like, the
essentially,
Zords increase in power.
The Rangers themselves draw on the same power grid, so like they're kind of comparable, but the Dragonzords themselves are not the same thing.
Right. Like, they also draw from the Morphin Grid and whatnot, but they clearly have a limitation.
They have a power
machines.
cap.
Are much,
Yeah.
They're machines. And I don't.
You've seen anime before.
Yeah, it's basically
like
anime,
that, you know?
Yeah.
So they upgrade the Zords, they build new ones to essentially draw more power from the Ranger and the connecting Morphin Grid. So no, unfortunately, we can't scale the Dragonzord to some crazy powerful Zord from later on in Power Rangers, or even to like some stuff in the comics. Like, even the comics actually literally kind of address this in there's like a timeline. An alternate timeline in the comics where Tommy turned evil, and in order for the Dragonzord to be super powerful, he actually upgraded it. And it's like the Black Dragon. It's like really powerful, but it uses pieces of the Dragonzord. It's not the Dragonzord itself. So in order for it to become that powerful, he had to upgrade it. So yeah, the Zords don't exactly scale that way. Okay, so we're very close to the end of the Q&A. This is the big question that a lot of people wanted us to address, and we did not include it in the episode because most people watching will have no idea what I'm talking about or care. But for you people who are really into versus debates and whatnot, I'm going to talk about Vrock's solar eclipse feat from Megaforce. You guys have no idea what I'm talking about.
Say that again.
I don't know.
Say it slower.
Which parts are the
So
nouns?
in Megaforce, there's a villain named Vrock, and near the end of it, he essentially what happens is he's been fighting the Megaforce Power Rangers for a while, and he's super frustrated. He fucking hates them, so he's like, whatever, I'm just going to blow up the planet. And the way he's going to do this is he gets a bunch of these drills, and he puts these drills in the earth.
Okay.
And the way the drills are going to work is they are going to get energy from a solar eclipse, bury themselves in the earth, and break it apart. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's essentially what's happening in that episode. So
Sounds like a Power Rangers episode.
the assumption or the belief that a lot of people within the Versus community have is that Vrock intentionally creates the solar eclipse, which gives the power to the drills. And then there's a really well done calculation on Versus Battle Wiki from I'm going to butcher this name, Darkanine, that calculates this to be 714 zetatons of TNT, and that is essentially just below planet level.
Okay.
Like, essentially almost
Also,
powerful enough to blow up the planet.
Bring this into
Well, yeah,
the Dragonzord. How does
exactly
this?
where I was gonna go.
Well,
It's like,
that's-
if
yeah,
you're
I'm
that
getting to
strong,
that. I'm
just
getting
blow up
to
the
that.
fucking planet, right?
I'm
Like,
getting to that because he's defeated by the Rangers. One Ranger specifically. So one Ranger kills him, which would imply that if that Ranger can kill him, that would mean that perhaps that Ranger is also planet level. And if the Zords are more powerful than the Rangers, then the Zords must be multi-planet level or something like that, above
Okay.
Wow.
They can blow up a planet, presumably. So why would Mechagodzilla even stand a chance if the Dragonzord can blow up a planet? So that's the idea. And this seems to be generally accepted by the Versus community as fact. So we looked into this. We did. And I had so many discussions with the research team about this because I do not think this is actually an accurate feat. I don't think Vrock actually caused the solar eclipse. I'm going to go through the reasons why really fast. One, there's no reason given for Vrock's sudden ability to create an eclipse. He never shows this ability or anything close to it throughout the series. It's just suddenly he's able to do it, apparently. So personally, I think it's more likely that he was waiting for it, and he just happened to know when it was going to happen. Like, we know when solar eclipses are going to happen.
Yeah, you can plan for it, just like releasing an episode on Jason David Frank's birthday. Just like,
Same calendar.
yeah.
Exactly. Maybe it's magic. Maybe he's magically moving the moon, but at that point, it's a little hard to scale magic powers to non-magic Power Rangers. Like, sure, you could do it with something like we did with the Rita blowing up the Island of Illusion, but that's a very direct explosion. Like, we can calculate that, and we know what she's doing. She's creating an explosion. Moving the moon could be anything. Who knows what you'd do?
Move the moon, you would make a whole bunch of tsunamis and shit, yeah? Mm-hmm. So, like, that would be mentioned, I feel like.
I mean, it's Power Rangers, so there's a certain extent where they just
we're not getting that hard, right?
Like,
oh no, big waves.
you can't question it too much. But and we do keep that in mind. It's not like I'm not here taking these series like as seriously as possible. Like, it's fucking Power Rangers. It's cheesy as shit. It's meant to be cheesy. So let's see. Like I said, it may be a naturally occurring eclipse. He's like fighting if you watch the scene, he's fighting the Rangers as this eclipse is happening, and then when the eclipse happens, he stops the fight, and basically the entire scene just changes. He says, "The appointed time has arrived." That's a quote, which could imply that he was waiting for it, could imply that maybe he set it up in advance and was waiting for it then, but if he could just do it, I don't know why he would be fighting the Rangers, especially since after the eclipse happens, he's no longer playing around. Like, he's throwing his deadliest attacks at them, and the Rangers are barely able to survive. So
it's almost like he's trying to hold them off so that the eclipse can happen.
Exactly. It's just the context of the scene overall, it just doesn't make any sense to me why he would be waiting, why he would be messing around with them for the first half of the fight. It seems weird to me. So he also says that he would harness the power of the eclipse to power his drills, which would destroy the planet. If he had the power to move the moon, if he had planet-level power, why would he even need the drills? Or why would he need the eclipse in the first place? He could just power the drills himself. It seems strange to me that he would do all of this if he already had planet-level power anyway. Basically, the whole situation would seem very unnecessary.
Also, how the fuck is a solar eclipse powering something?
Don't worry about it.
That's another thing about it's Power Rangers. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Cool.
I'm actually going to get to that in just a second. Another thing, saying that the Rangers and the Zords are near or above planet level doesn't really make a lot of sense when you consider Serpentera. Serpentera was a Zord in the Zeo era, or no, not the Zeo era, the Mighty Morphin era. That Zed had. It was Zed's Zord. And the big thing about Serpentera was that it was a Zord that was powerful enough to destroy a planet.
Oh, yeah.
That was its thing. So if all Zords could destroy a planet, then what was the big deal with Serpentera in the first place? And why couldn't the other Zords just fight it? It wouldn't make a lot of sense. Like, the whole concept of Serpentera was that it was just so far out of everyone's league.
And that's why they had to upgrade to the Thunder Zords, right? Or
they had already upgraded.
Oh, they had already upgraded.
Okay, Swords at that point. The only reason why they were able to survive Serpentera is because it runs on like 2 AA batteries. It ran out of energy.
He should have upgraded to the bigger battery.
That's basically what the whole story was. It's kind of great.
Got the Serpentera XR or whatever. It
like ran out of gas halfway to Earth or something like that. It's really stupid, but I love it.
It's solar powered. There was an eclipse. He fucked up.
So all of this combined makes this feat a true outlier, a calc that isn't supported by further evidence. And again, we didn't include it in the episode because frankly, I don't think most of you care that much. That's why we do this kind of Q&A, though. Like, we do this sort of Q&A to address comments and questions that people who do care a lot, that are involved in the Versus community. And that way we can kind of address that without essentially extending and bogging down the episode for viewers who aren't really into it that much. Like, let's be honest, most of the people who watch Death Battle are here just to have a fun time, checking out these ridiculous calculations, experiencing the characters again, and watching a cool fight.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got to make sure that they're not horribly bored by us talking about this random character from like 20 years later who moved a moon.
There's no giant conspiracy. We are an entertainment company.
And also,
one of our goals.
Also, I don't really like the idea of presenting a calculation that somebody has taken a lot of time on, like this guy on the Versus Battle wiki, and in Death Battle, and essentially kind of calling them out, like debunking them and making a very public display of it in a video that's going to be seen by millions of people.
Yeah.
I don't really like that when we don't need to do that.
No.
This, obviously, the podcast is seen by fewer people, so I feel like it's a little safer. Like, we're not going to be...
Well, and also
it's not going to create this...
There's nothing against that person's, like you said, they did pretty solid count on it. It's just, we don't think there's enough supporting evidence to be like, yeah, all of them are that powerful. We think it's the solar eclipse is... a
natural occurring event.
But if I ever have a character that does cause a solar eclipse, I know what math to go look at first. I'm gonna be like, give me a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, Death Battle isn't here to call anybody out per se. Like, we're here to have a fun time with you guys and make a cool fight. Like, that's the general idea. That's why we don't do like huge debates or whatnot. Like, we're not here to argue with people. Basically, we're here to make cool fights.
Make a cool fight, figure out who wins by just, without going so in depth that it
Oh, of course. Either way, what if it is true? What if Rak did make the eclipse and is planet level? Would that mean that the Rangers are planet level too? Even if it was all true, no. Actually, the Rangers actually could not defeat Rock at all. He completely overpowered them. They couldn't even destroy the drills. They even tried like this classic power of friendship move, which they do in like a bunch of these Ranger shows, right?
Like, of course they do. Yeah.
Like half of them end with power of friendship, pulls the Morphin Grid together and destroys the bad guy. Like most of them do that.
And it like destroys their power at the same time.
And I actually really appreciate this because they did that at the end of Megaforce and it failed.
That's great.
It failed horribly.
Fuck your friendship.
So Vrock was kind of impossible to defeat. So what they decided to do is... And how they decided to do this, I'll never know, because why they would know that this would work, who knows. But they combined their powers into a Sky Strike, which is a move that they would do, where all 5 of them combine the powers into the Red Ranger's sword, essentially.
Yeah.
But that alone wouldn't have accomplished anything, right? They'd already been throwing the powers out this whole time. It just so happens that, for whatever reason, the Sky Strike can absorb energy from the eclipse. So according to their mentor Gosei, he says that
How does the eclipse have energy?
with the power of the eclipse, they can quote
The lack
increase
of something. It's the lack of something.
They can increase their power 1,000-fold. So essentially, what was happening is this infinite Sky Strike, as it's called, was striking Vrock with the power of 5,000 Power Rangers.
Nice.
Whoa.
So maybe 5,000 Power Rangers could destroy a planet if all this is accurate. But definitely not one. And again, it's probably not accurate because we've already gone through all the reasons why. So, yeah, there's that. And this is why context is very important. So I'll just kind of end it on that. If you want to know what the hell we're talking about, look up the end of Power Rangers Megaforce. That's the scene. I know we spent a lot of time on that, and some of you guys are probably wondering, like, oh, whatever, go on, move on. So let's move on.
I'm just trying to figure out how to power my car with an eclipse. Right
I know,
now.
right?
Yeah.
So the last question is, will we ever see a Power Ranger from an era other than Mighty Morphin or Super Sentai itself?
I always wanted.
I think that'd be cool.
I always wanted RPM because that's like the modernish one I like a lot. Like it's so silly and weird and different and Mad Maxy and like.
You had talked about it, so
Yeah.
I checked it out, and
Yeah.
I kind of loved it. I
Yeah.
think the Zords were really cheesy and weird.
Yeah,
but-
well, except for the gold and silver, the ones that are flying. I think it's the gold one has a flying one. It's like a pterodactyl
I
or something.
think they both flew.
Yeah, I think both gold and silver fly in that, which is really cool to see like flying Zords. Makes no sense. These are heavy metal robots. They shouldn't be flying. But whatever, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Planes fly.
I don't think they have any jets though. I think it's literally fucking flapping its wings.
Well, they're also
like
weird Morphin Grid
Yeah, sure.
nonsense.
Right.
They get powered by fucking solar eclipses. Like, sure.
Yeah.
Either way, yes, I think it'd be cool. It all depends on you guys, though. Like, if there are any Power Rangers or Super Sentai Rangers, what are they called? Why am I blanking on that? Super Sentai Rangers that you want to see, let us know. We base most of our matchups off of your suggestions, so you can find a link in the description below where you can submit via a request form, leave a comment about it, what have you. Personally, I think it'd be really cool to bring in Kruger from SPD. He's a dog, but like a dog alien man who's like he's a Power Ranger and he fights kind of like a samurai. Ooh, it's kind of awesome.
Dope.
Okay.
And from SPD, Captain Marvelous seems really cool. He's the one that gets all the other Ranger powers. He's like a pirate. It's like stealing it all. It's kind of fun. And then somewhat related, there has been a consistent, not necessarily super popular, but a consistent request for Kamen Rider.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will be bringing Kamen Rider, some iteration of Kamen Rider, into Death Battle at some point.
Kamen Rider is one of those ones where I remember looking at it like a year ago, and I was like, oh, God, like the research on this, like he's been around for...
Well, it's like Power Rangers. It changes all the time.
Yeah, but still, like I feel like there's so much to go through for Kamen Rider. Like you got to do a lot of research. So that's going to be a big undertaking to do Kamen Rider.
Yeah. But anyway, I know that was long Q&A. Thank you for sticking out.
That was
with
like the
this.
whole episode.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
So we might just skip straight to the community death battle if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
The Piers versus Piers thing at the end, we were going to talk about how Pierce Brosnan... Well, let's do that real quick. We'll make it a very quick... Let's do that. Let's
I thought
find
we
out
were
what's
just going
going
to
on.
discuss how you pronounce
Yeah.
their names differently, because you have to, right?
Piers and Piers. Yeah.
Plural peer.
Well, the way it looked on the bottom, Pierce versus Piers, it's like it sounds like Pierce Brosnan is fighting a pier, multiple piers. Like he's going to each ocean front and he's just like bring it
Do you
on.
This
pronounce
Piers
them both as
sucks.
Piers or Pierce? Do you pronounce them both as Pierce?
Pierce Brosnan and
Piers.
Pierce
Pierce
Morgan.
Piers
Morgan.
Pierce.
Yes.
Pierce Brosnan.
We need someone with
There
an
we go.
English accent to come in
That's
here.
right.
And
That's the key.
Okay,
It
that
unlocks
makes sense.
everything.
That makes sense.
yeah.
Dang
So
it.
what we were going to talk about is how Pierce Brosnan said that he wouldn't mind seeing a woman take on the role of James Bond, and Piers Morgan said, "Fuck that," because it's Piers Morgan.
Also, Pierce Morgan has like no fucking. You've never been a James Bond. Fuck out of here. With your shit.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, you have no
That's right.
attachment to this franchise, whatever. Where Pierce Brosnan was James Bond for like 6 movies, 5
Yeah.
maybe.
Some really good ones. And he has dope ass
Yeah.
video game. Come on.
Yeah, the best.
This game is great.
Yeah.
There's even a GameCube one that's
It's
really
also
strong
very
too.
good. Everything or Nothing. I think.
Yeah, I think.
Oh yeah.
Really good.
Okay.
Yeah. He also had, I think, one really bad movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh,
But you can't win
yeah,
them
his
all.
movies kind of got. I mean,
The last two,
like
the
with most
one,
James
the one
Bond
with
series.
Halle
Ice
Berry
one.
was
Oh,
that
yeah.
one, yeah.
It's not The World Is Not Enough. Is that it? Or is it?
I can't remember what it's
I
called.
don't know. I
can't
mean, let's just all just sit on Goldeneye for a second and be like,
Right.
wow, what a banger.
Exactly.
But
Also,
yeah,
Pierce Morgan.
And like,
Yeah,
I think
come on,
this is the perfect
Pierce?
example of like people
What?
talk
Pierce?
about
Pierce Morgan.
Yeah.
people
Pierce
talk about like
Morgan.
what you can or can't do with a character, and it's like, oh, like, you know, they made an Ariel African American, that's weird, whatever. It's like, you can do, the only thing you can't do with James Bond is like they need to be British.
Yeah.
In
That's it.
newsflash,
I agree.
British people can be of any color or race or anything like that. They just
Or
happen
gender.
to like, yeah, or gender. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Oh my gosh,
It's like,
there are
and, like,
female British people.
yeah. It's like, oh, well, James Bond should be a womanizer. It's like, we can still do that.
Could still do that.
That's a fine character trait you can give a woman too. Like, that's great. Like, sure, it doesn't matter. Like, the color of the character doesn't fucking matter. As long as they're British, I'm cool. And if you want to still have them be a bit of a womanizer, it doesn't seem very good these days. It's not a great look, but whatever. A woman
Well,
can still do that.
Womanizer or at least seductive. Like
Right.
James
Yeah,
Bond's
yeah.
main
Mission.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pierce Brosnan wasn't like a hard womanizer. Neither was
Yeah.
Daniel Craig, really. It's just
Well,
the older ones. Like
but-
Sean
Well,
Connery
it's
was
it's
a
Pierce
piece
Brosnan.
of shit.
Like, are you gonna like turn him down?
No,
He's
I
still
wouldn't.
handsome as fuck.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
on.
You got to be
Yeah.
a good-looking
How's he
person.
not aging much?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like
Got to be an immortal person. Apparently.
Yeah.
apparently, yeah. I'm incredibly jealous of that man.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. Seduction is part of the James Bond thing.
Yeah.
You got to keep that. Obviously, it's a British icon. It would be very strange to change that because that's removing it from its roots as a British icon. One of
Yeah,
the most important
yeah.
characters out there.
Yeah, you can't have an American in an MI6 or
Frankly,
something, right?
Yeah, that would be stupid.
Yeah.
They made Doctor Who a woman. And
Yeah.
They made the Doctor a woman. And I know people have mixed opinions on that season, but personally, I feel like more of the issues came from the writing and the showrunner. And I don't think she did a bad job at all. I actually think she did a fantastic job.
You're saying the
she's a great
actress
doctor.
did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I think it would make total sense. I think it would be perfectly fine.
Yeah. There's like, yeah, you can do whatever the fuck. The characters have defining characteristics, and it is rarely race or gender.
Yeah.
Except for
Gaming
maybe
news
like,
guy in the
Superman.
chat says it's not like the Doctor from Doctor Who
Same
who
thing.
can regenerate and change body types. I mean,
What do you mean it's a different
007
fucking
does.
Yeah.
It's a job. Like what?
Have they ever come out and said like it's just like there are different James Bonds, but it's like
title.
it's the title and like
Right.
his code name rather
Yeah.
than like
Yeah,
it's
it's
an
not
actual
all-
person. Well, I guess in the newer ones like they go into like Daniel Craig, his name is actually Bond.
Right, they see a
like,
tombstone or whatever,
of his
yeah.
parents and all that. But like the other ones, there was
Yeah,
this like
but
prevailing theory of
that,
like oh they're
that
all
James
different.
Bond,
yeah.
Casino Royale, and those ones are supposed to be from the Genesis story of James Bond.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
He
the
could be
other
the
James
first.
Bonds are supposed to be after that
Sure.
Daniel Craig one.
But that
And,
wouldn't
like,
make any sense
You know,
by
it doesn't make any sense,
timeline
but
and-
like in the way
Right.
the books are written, those are the stories they took them from. Was like
Yeah.
the
First
Casino
ones.
Royale and stuff were from the origins of the James Bond
Gotcha,
like,
yeah,
books
yeah.
and
Yeah.
the character. And obviously they weren't gonna make like, hey guys, let's make James Bond in the 70s. Like that's not. They weren't gonna do that in 2005 or whatever. So
Right,
yeah, they
yeah.
made it modern. But yeah, that's where the
But it
character
is a
origins come
different character
from. Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time. Like
Yeah.
it might as well have the same power as the Doctor to regenerate every couple decades or whatnot. Because it's basically the same thing. Like it's a
Yeah.
different character each time you have a new actor. There might be one or two that reference.
Well, I've said this.
There
for
were
years.
a couple that referenced, I think, Lazenby's Bond. I think
Yeah.
who was after him? Was that Moore? I think that might have been Roger
so.
Moore. I think some of his referenced the Lazenby Bond because he got married and his wife died. So there have been a couple references to other characters or other actor Bonds series, but for the most part, there's not a whole lot of continuity. So
Yeah.
whatever, it can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
I've been pushing for Idris Elba for years.
I know,
Idris
right?
would be
Yeah.
great.
Idris
Yeah.
would be
That would
That'd
be
be
dope. Man, like I know some people think that we kind of missed out. Like Idris Elba is getting a little too up there.
Oh no. He could,
I
yeah.
totally doubt it. I totally disagree.
He was
Well,
also
and there's
Black
no-
I'm
Superman.
kind of interested in what an
I think-
elderly James Bond could be
Casino
like.
Yeah.
Casino Royale is arguably. I don't even think arguably is one of the best Bond movies.
Absolutely.
And it is probably the least action-packed Bond movie.
Okay, real quick to wrap this up because we got to move on.
Oh, yeah.
If it was a woman playing Bond, would you still call her James?
Yeah.
Because I
Jamie,
feel like
but-
changing the
Jamie,
name would be
Jane.
a bit much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
changing the name
think,
would be a
but
bit
Ja-
much. But I actually think James could be a pretty dope I
Yeah. I don't
name
think.
for a
Why not?
woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's like it's not typically a woman's name, but that doesn't change anything. I think.
No.
Yeah.
We would work.
I guess- yeah, I guess
it's,
it would
it's
work.
a spy world anyway. Like they can do whatever they want.
I mean, because you can make it up
names.
as a good plot because it's just like it's a good way to disarm people because if you see on paper you're meeting James Bond, you have a very different thought process of who you're meeting.
Dude, what if they made a James Bond movie where everybody, including the audience, thought it was a guy, and then halfway through the movie, it's all been a cover. It was a woman all along.
That would be. I think then
That
then
might
people
shock
would
some
be,
people too much.
And also, like that's what I hate about fucking trailers these days is because they would never let that
That's true.
go.
Yeah.
Like I am
Yeah, they
waiting
make-
so much for the trailer that is a complete and utter fabrication, and the movie is nothing like the trailer.
Yeah. That'd
Well,
be great.
Marvel was kind of doing that with like they'd have Hulk in the trailers, but
Right.
he actually isn't in the movie. Like
Yeah, I
it'd
hope
be-
that
yeah.
catches on more. And they just start intentionally misleading you.
But that one felt like bullshit because then they're like, "Oh, I get a side of Hulk in my movie," and then we're like, "We lied, motherfucker!" Like, I feel
Yeah,
like it's different.
there's a
than,
certain
like-
line you can cross there by misadvertising something,
Yeah.
which
but
is
like the
technically
Deadpool
illegal.
2 trailer did it really well. We thought we were gonna get like that X-Force squad,
Ah, yeah.
and they pulled out the rug out from under you, but in a
Yeah.
great, really fun way.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, it can absolutely be done well. I think
Yeah.
Marvel in general has done a pretty good job with that. But if it does catch on, I can see it entering
Getting to a
areas
point
where
where,
it's,
yeah.
just
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
Where
I mean,
you
I
basically
feel
think
like-
a movie is completely different than you go into it. And it's like, oh, people are dying horrifically in this. I thought this was going to be a children's film. Like,
Yeah, but
that's
I
where
think
he
with a
gets in
franchise
trouble.
like 007, you can just be like, you all know what's happening right now, right? Like, spy, gun, maybe a boob if we're lucky. Like,
What are you?
God
like,
save the queen.
setting
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our community death battle.
hello, audience. Before we get to the community death battle, let me tell you about something wonderful. Quip toothbrushes. They're teeth brushers. Yeah, you heard me right. It's a crazy new idea brought to you by our friends at Quip. You get a thing with bristles on it, and you scrub your teeth to keep them clean so they don't fall out of your mouth, because once they do, you'll most likely die. Just the facts. The easiest way to start something like brushing your teeth and to get a good habit and routine is to start today. So let's talk about buying it now. Simplify the morning routine and evening with a simpler electric toothbrush from Quip. Timed sonic vibrations let you know that you're brushing long enough, and ultra-sensitive pulses are, they keep your gums healthy. Really, let's just be honest. They're amazing toothbrushes. And one thing that Quip won't tell you, but I will, is that you can name your toothbrush. Personally, I've called mine Tooth Daddy. It's a great brush name. You have to get your own. You can't have mine. They mount to the mirror with what is some sticky juice from a wizard. I don't understand it, but it is constantly sticky. You can take it off the mirror, throw it in a dirty backpack, and put it in a mirror at a hotel, and it still sticks. And also, while you did that, you carried your toothbrush in a cleanly manner, because it is also the carrying case for your toothbrush, which makes it super easy to travel. We've talked about Quip 100 times. You guys know that I'm all about this toothbrush. Just go buy it. Quip is one of the first electronic toothbrushes accepted by the American Dental Association. If you don't want to take my word for it, they're backed by over 25,000 dental professionals, and they have 1,000 verified 5-star reviews. So yeah, I mean, it's dope. Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/cast right now, you can get your first refill pack for free. That's your first refill pack for free at getquip.com/cast. GETQUIP.com/cast. Go do it. They're great. They keep your teeth clean.
All right, so we are wrapping up DBX.
Yeah.
This is
Last
season
one.
finale.
Yeah.
For this year at least, I believe
We're
we
done.
will be
Finito.
continuing
Yeah, I
in
don't
the
know.
next
Yeah.
year, but
Fingers crossed. We gotta get. Let's see if,
Matt, get at us.
Yeah.
but for
See if he
the
comes back
season
around.
finale of DBX, the new revamped DBX, Sam, you want to take this away? Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Batman Iron Man, which is a pretty highly requested fight. This is like the nice thing about DBX is because like this one would be. Funny enough, I actually think Batman would win if we did a death battle and we gave him all of his suits, especially if we gave him the final bat suit. Like, there's not a question about it. He wins. But in, like, a normal sense, you look at these two characters and they're like, super-powered robot man, strong human. And you're like, okay, who's going to win this fight? And, like, so it's a lot of fun to be able to do stuff like this in DBX. And, yeah, I don't want to do anything that's going to spoil it because it doesn't come out for a few more days. But it's really cool. It's really fun. It was animated in-house by Luisa and Zach, so it's a tip-top shape. Yeah, it's just fun. This one was a lot of like, let's let these animators do what they want to do with this fight and have a lot of fun with it, because that's kind of the point of DBX. So, like, the beginning of it is pretty much, not pretty much, the beginning of it, the fight starts over a pretty memey joke. So it's just like they were having fun with the whole thing, and then it gets into a badass fight, and it's really good. Yeah.
I'm just ready to see these billionaires just throw money at each other. Just
Yeah.
all their money.
Do you want to do these?
Do we have time?
Real fast. All right. So as always with Community Death Battle, we let you guys say who you think would win and why. And if you haven't voted on this week's DBX, maybe one of these answers will help convince you who you think should win. So we got an answer from Jason Sith for Batman.
So Batman takes the fight and, Batman fights and tags enemies stronger and faster than Iron Man faces. has better preparation, which is very true, is smarter and more resilient. Also, Wayne Enterprises was valued by Forbes to be $31.3 billion, and Stark Industries is only $20 billion.
Only.
So,
Only.
Only
Sucks.
$20 billion.
Come on.
I mean, that's not
Tony.
even fucking Bezos money. Get the shit out of here. Like, that's weird. Hey, Bezos has been getting strong. Do you think he's going to be our first real Batman or Iron Man?
I could see
He's
him being
definitely
Iron Man.
much more Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd he do?
Oh, did you see that thing with the hand?
No.
They made.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about.
He works
Yeah.
with,
with the haptic
the
feedback
robot.
and
He
shit.
has
We
a
have
Yeah.
haptic
60
feedback
seconds
hand.
to wrap this up because we're getting on an hour.
Now for Iron Man. Iron Man has this
From Aiden Breshers.
He's lifted.
Aiden? Sorry.
He's lifted 16,000 tons. He's lifted a 16,000-ton nuclear reactor. Withstood a nuclear explosion while his suit was at 2%. Can react in a picosecond. Fun word. Knocked out She-Hulk with one punch. Survived a chunk of Titan's moon falling on top of him. Also, he's Iron Man. Excelsior.
I mean,
like
the
that.
nuclear explosion, that's not a big deal. If there's a fridge nearby, Batman can just jump in that.
Yeah, that's easy. We've seen it. Fridges are nuclear.
Yeah.
But make sure to vote. Voting's up for 2 more days on the final battle. This one is pretty tight so far, and there's a shit ton of votes. I'm always surprised. It's like, oh yeah, lots of people showed a vote. It's awesome. So yeah, make sure to go vote. Do that.
Yeah.
We will, once DBX is over, we will be continuing Community Death Battle as it used to be. We'll go back into the same sort of format that we've been doing, but combining it with DBX has been really awesome to see people's answers. And I think you guys have been doing a fantastic job with the season so far.
Hopefully we'll get to do it again next year.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe watch all the videos over again. Maybe we'll get to do it again next year.
What is that, YouTube on repeat? Just
Yeah.
like, there
Yeah,
you
Yeah,
go.
just loop that playlist.
Yeah.
Mhm.
YouTube doesn't figure that out, right?
No.
The algorithm doesn't figure out that you're cheating the system, right?
No.
No, thank you guys so much for supporting DBX this year. These guys have had an awesome time putting it together. The animators have done a fabulous job making some really interesting fights that I don't know if we would necessarily have been able to see in Death Battle. Very unique matchups. And I think that's generally the idea for DBX going forward, is it's going to take on some weird but cool fights. And
We have one plan for next season because we have our here's the list if we get the budget that I really, really, really want to go all out on. It sounds so cool. So hopefully we'll get there.
Let's do it, hopefully.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Cast. Thank you guys for being here. I know that was mainly just doing Q&A. That was a lot, but
I learned a lot about Power Rangers. I thought I was a fan, but now, you know.
now you know everything about solar eclipses and how you can draw energy from them to
watch
kill
out, Elon Musk. Watch out,
monsters.
You know.
Maybe this is what Elon Musk was after all along. Maybe he watched
There we go.
Power Rangers Megaforce and was like,
The power.
solar
Yeah,
eclipse
eclipse-
increases
solar eclipse,
power
the key to everything.
1,000-fold.
I'll throw everybody off by creating solar roofs.
Then when
Never
the
think of the
eclipse comes,
eclipse.
all the solar roofs will turn into drills, and they'll drill into the earth, and then I'll defeat the Power Rangers.
Great plan.
All right, we got you figured out, Musk. I don't know why this suddenly became a Musk show, but
Musk, get at us.
all right, we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.